The little yellow button came on.
Oh, cool. Hello, everyone. It's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. And I am here live today with Debbie. How do I pronounce your last name? Lusignan? I'm horrible with names.
That's all right. Me too. I just learned how to say it last week. Don't worry about it. Lusignan. Debbie Lusignan.
Debbie Lusignan. The same progressive. I'm announcing you, but of course, I would imagine the majority of people know who you are.
Oh.
Let me test this to make sure first. Hey guys, can you hear me okay? My wife is not on the job today. She's not feeling well. You know what's funny? This is kind of one of those inside things. She was like, don't have people asking, where's Miss Thomas? I was like, oh yeah, they're not gonna do that. It's fine.
Okay.
How's it going, Garden? Oh, good. Everybody can hear it. Oh, perfect. Sometimes I get sound issues. I've been trying to fix them out with the mic and everything else. So Debbie, how goes it?
I'm getting a little feedback.
You're getting feedback?
I'm getting feedback on my side.
Okay, let's see what's going on. Maybe I did something wrong. Mute mic. Talk for me and I'm going to mute my mic. I shouldn't have to do this, but maybe I did something wrong.
I'm getting feedback on my side of the computer.
Okay, let's do this. Communications, Snowball, that's correct. Okay, how about now?
How about now? Wait, it's working. Miraculous.
Okay, all right, just making sure. The Rod Wheeler interview, I think it went in like 30, 40 minutes, and it was like, dude, there's something wrong with the sound. It's like, oh, it was a good interview. All right, so how goes it? Everything okay today? Everything, the world is good, all that good stuff. And by the way, welcome to the Soapbox.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm very, very excited to be here.
Very cool. So tell me, I don't know the story to this. I've checked back. I do research when I bring somebody on the show. Now, the research for you was a little bit different because I have watched your show for a while. And because I've watched your show for a while, it's weird. It's doing an interview with somebody who you actually like. You're like, okay, I like that person. That person says things that I actually agree with. How did you start this? How did you become the same progressive? How did you shed the moniker of just Debbie and become the same progressive?
I did a video one day in my car. It was at the beginning of the Bernie Sanders campaign, so very long ago, and before my optimism was squeezed out of me, and my beautiful naivete was still. I was just a flower on the vine. And I decided, I've actually been a long-term political activist since I was 20, actually 18 years old. I've been traditionally with the Democratic Party for a very, very long time. I was on local and state Democratic boards, a delegate to the state convention numerous times, and I did also a lot of issue-oriented political activism. And I dropped out of it after Obama because I knew better than to vote for Obama. I had been blogging over on Democratic Underground in Daily Kos, and I knew when I saw him voting for the telecom immunity before the election and selling the Bush-Balson plan that was not going to be a good gig. But even knowing that, I went ahead and voted for him anyways, thinking maybe he's trying to trick him. He's going to trick him, and he's going to get in there, and he's going to trick him, and then he's going to be like, bam, he's going to do it. And then I saw his cabinet appointments, and I'm like, oh, I sent him $100. I can't believe I did that.
It's funny. I've made this joke that it was like, and it wasn't a joke. I think it's real. Progressives and African Americans, let's be honest. I think a lot of people thought in 2012 when he ran, oh, he's going to rip the chains off. This is going to be, he doesn't have to worry about another re-election. This is going to be the true Obama that ran in 2008 that we're just getting him 4 years later. Yeah, man. Not so much. You know what did it for me? Obama. Honestly, he was the person who did it for me. Trans-Pacific Partnership. That was the thing. It's such a jarring experience to see. It's like, whoa, that's what's in this, and that's what he's going for, and you're getting out there saying this is the most progressive piece of legislation. And at that point, you're just like, all right, yeah, this is Yeah, this is my deal breaker. This is my deal breaker.
So I actually knew immediately who he was the second I saw his cabinet. And I started writing about what he was doing. And actually in these sites like the, Democratic Underground, which used to feature me as one of their top blogs every day, the second I started talking about Obama for what he was doing in real time, they wanted to burn me as a witch. Everybody who featured me when I was saying the exact same things about Bush, they're like, stone her. And it's like, you don't understand the chess he's playing. You do not understand the brilliance of the Obama. I'm like, but no, he's just playing us. He's not playing chess. He's playing us. And it was bad. I got banned and I got tombstoned. And so after that, I dropped out. But then I saw Bernie. I'm like, Bernie's going to be different.
yes, right. This is what I want to talk about. At least in the beginning.
It's gonna be so different. And I went up. I was so excited. I went up to his I drove up to Burlington. I was there at the his opening rally, and everybody was wearing the tie-dye and dancing, and there was free Ben and Jerry's ice cream, and I'm like, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. And I also knew better because I knew Bernie's record with the military-industrial complex.
Right.
I actually took a month before I went up and did it because I was like, am I just a total hypocrite? Am I rationalizing things that I shouldn't be rationalizing? Which I was, but I had good intentions, which the road to hell is paved with. And here we are today. So I started to answer your question in a long-winded way, as I wont to do, as anybody who watches my show knows. I did a video in my car, and it was kind of a humorous video, and it was like, Bernie Sanders is not on the menu. You have a lovely Jeb Bush. He has a different first name. And there's Hillary Clinton, who's a woman, very cheeky. So that was how it went. and then awesome. I just, the channel went from there, and I never had any agenda with the channel. I just figured I would say whatever I wanted, and wherever it went. And it went in a lot of weird directions I didn't expect.
That's freedom. That's freedom. Look, I've learned so much from doing this channel. I only have 3,500 subscribers. I've learned a ton. One of the things I've learned is perspectives are relative. Meaning, it's like you put your perspective out, and there are going to be people who hate your guts for it. There are going to be other people who think you're absolutely awesome. And it's, yeah, man, I'm free. There's no way for me to go. It's like anything I say, I'm going to get hit on it. So yeah, I'm free. I'm not necessarily towing a particular line. This is what I believe in. And I have to be honest, that's the thing I love about your show. Even when I completely disagreed, there was just stuff like, oh man, I completely disagree with her. But she's in a forest screaming by herself, and God bless her. That's honestly where that's where it's been sometimes.
I've become famous for that.
she's going at it. I was like, that woman is a force of nature, and she's holding that line, and God bless her, she's holding that line. And look, I'm not a religious person. I'm saying it just as colloquialism. It's just that thing of and that's not easy to do. Like, I don't know if people realize it, but you have a lot of people who are against your position, and you're in the sandbox of the left, and you're bashing Obama, and people are like, hey, tamp down on that talking about Obama stuff. It's like, yeah, I know, but Bush was doing the same thing. Hey, tamp down on that Obama stuff. That's an amazing thing. It's like, and for me, it was this awakening of getting out of office and like, yeah, they were similar. They were almost the same. Like, you're looking at the military, and it's like, well, I don't understand. How are you not calling out him murdering civilians at this rate, but it was okay when Bush did it? Like, you're angry at Bush doing it. Right. And at that point, I realized, oh, they're hypocrites. That's when I realized it.
Yes.
That's when I realized it. That was my awakening. They're hypocrites. Yeah. And Sanders was the same thing for me. It was this thing of like, oh, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. I was in Philadelphia, and I had the same experience. This was a love fest. Everybody out there loves each other. It's like, it's freezing, absolutely freezing. You're outside for 6-7 hours, and everybody loves one another. It's a love fest. Sanders gets up there, and he does his thing, and you're feeling amazing. And then it's like, oh man, I don't particularly like that particular action. I don't like not calling out the cheating. I don't like. Now, I think we've taken slightly different perspectives of this, which I definitely want to get into. Is some of this I've seen you talk about Sanders, and you're not wrong on this. I've made the point before that you're better than me. Like, you're a better person than I am. And I say that only from the perspective of, to me, this stuff boils down to chess to some degree. And for you, it's a certain level of purity. It's like, look, you need to have certain purity of purpose if you're going to get anything done. Otherwise, you're just building on the same foundation that you've always had. Is that fair? Is that the argument? Is that the basic crux?
Not fair. I reject the purity stance that everybody puts on me. I don't.
Fair enough. Go for it. And I didn't mean purity by just, okay, go for it.
I always, I mean, you've probably heard me talk about this because you've watched my station.
Absolutely.
Okay. Purity. All right. There is a big difference between purity and having a baseline ethical standard. All right. Very, very big difference. I am not asking for a unicorn with a rainbow that can fly. I'm not. Okay. I'm asking that when your constituents give you $300 million, right? And you see the Democratic Party cheat their ass off from sea to shining sea, you lock the election integrity activist community out of the campaign, who is trying to say his own election attorney. They cheated Arizona. The Arizona Secretary of State, they cheated Arizona.
Wasn't just Arizona.
Yeah, they stole all the votes in New York. All right, he didn't do anything, which was bad enough. But then he goes around and uses the trust that people have put in, and he lies his ass off on the Russian narrative to scapegoat Russia for a crime that was committed internally by the Democratic Party, thus obfuscating and covering their fraud, which to me is worse than them doing it, because I wasn't vested in them. I was vested in him. So expecting Sanders not to lie his ass off to cover for the corruption and fraud of the Democratic Party, which committed a criminal act against his own constituents, should not be viewed as some kind of ridiculous purity. It should be viewed as such a baseline of common sense that I cannot believe major commentators do not see this and want to draft him. I don't understand it. It confuses me.
You're right. You're right. Look, you're right. You're completely right. That's the purity thing. Look, man, I said purity only because it's a bad word to use in that sense. It's too wishy-washy. It's not specific enough. I agree with you. There is this kind of base level of standard where you're looking at this and say, dude, they cheated us. Not just you, they cheated us. We gave you hundreds of millions of dollars, and then you turn around and go for a crowd and tell that crowd to vote for Hillary Clinton. Now, for the beautiful part of the crowd, they booed him. Like, I've watched videos where they booed him for like a solid minute when he mentioned the term Hillary Clinton, and yet, for the most part, they were still cheering him on. I agree with you, man. I do agree with you. It's, oh man, you're a better person than me. Even still, I still have this thing in me, this pang in me of this thing of, I guess it's this feeling of, okay, at the very least, he woke up right many people. And in waking up right many people, what took place in the Democratic primary, it was like killing a mockingbird to some degree. And I'm not saying Bernie Sanders is a mockingbird. I'm just saying this idea of all these young people who came into the political process and thought, we can make a different country. We can have a different world. And then have that to be cheated. And then the people who cheated him, the guy turns around and says, hey, I need you to vote for the party that cheated me. So I get it. I get it.
Yeah, and I actually have far more compassion for Bernie Sanders than people give me credit for. I do not point these things out because I have any particular hang.
I don't know, man. I've seen some fire and brimstone on your channel.
I have really calmed down because my more underlying core belief is we are in a political structure that we cannot get politicians in who can effectively create change. So we can be mad at any individual politician on the left, the right, whatever, but the real problem is the absolute infiltration of so much corruption and fraud within the system that it is no longer functional. And we keep pretending that we are going to utilize political mechanisms that are no longer available to us with the way the system is now defunct and basically being run as a mob rule, and keep doing that and create change. And it's not going to work. It hasn't worked. And so, you know, a lot of my conversations now are about how do we address the realities we face and change our strategy.
Yeah, I agree. I understand. I do understand. If Sanders wasn't cheated, if Sanders did win, would you still have this perspective? I mean, would you? I guess what I'm getting at is it fair to say, and I'm picking just to make an argument here, is it fair to say that this system, in a sense, this political apparatus, I've always said the political apparatus is broken. The moment that you had money essentially buying politicians, then this idea of democracy goes out the window. But you have people choosing Trump. I mean, I guess I'm making this point that everybody was against the guy. Yes, the guy is a horrible, horrible person. I get it. But is it, in a weird, backwards, ridiculous way, is Trump some degree, some edifice, some aspect of the system still trying to function, even though it's done so in a kind of mutilated way?
I don't understand your question.
I guess what I'm getting at is Donald Trump was elected even though people hated his guts. I mean, both, like when you're talking about media and you're talking about politics, they absolutely hated his guts, and the guy was still able to get elected. Is that some aspect of the system itself, some aspect of it still functional? Or do you think it's just completely defunct?
Well, I mean, I think Trump was an accidental president. You know, a lot of people, in fact, I go against the majority of other commentators on this, who argue that Hillary Clinton had the election stolen from her.
You already stole it. They already stole it.
I know, but they still argue out. I think that Trump had to overcome such a margin of cheating that he won anyways. And so that, I mean, that showed that there was, you know, that if a huge enough portion of people showed up and pushed back, that they could elect an incredibly narcissistic
maniac,
sociopathic man to the presidency. So I mean, I don't know how you can say that's functional, because the people really didn't have any choice within that. We know that Donald Trump was elevated by the Clinton campaign as a tactic to blackmail
that's true
the voters into supporting Hillary Clinton out of fear. And he became as powerful as he was because the media was pushing him in servitude of Clinton. We know this through the Pied Piper email, if people haven't seen.
That's true.
So, I mean, I don't know if you can call that functional. I mean, the whole thing was a farce.
Yeah.
You know, and so people ended up choosing the, you know, the kind of the booby prize candidate, you know, that would be like, you know, if you let's make a deal, there'd be like a donkey, you know.
I agree. Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know. I mean, no, it's not functional.
No, it's not functional. If you end up in a political apparatus where you get Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump as your choices, that's not a functional political apparatus. I mean, you had hundreds of thousands of people didn't even fill out the presidency, like filled out everyone else and say, okay, I can't make this choice.
Right.
Like that's not a choice. That's not a choice. No. Fair enough. So you took heat recently for, well, essentially your take on the Charlottesville thing. I think your take is similar to mine on this. I've heard your conversation on this. I think it was yesterday. What's the flag? So what's the flag is the way you explain it or the way you understand it. I mean, that's if you even consider it flag.
Oh, I'm always getting flack.
Yeah, you always get flack. It's hitting from some direction. In this case, though, it's hitting from the left. Like it's hitting purely from this thing of this kind of man, they're gonna hate me for saying it. It's just reactionary left. I understand. Look, my wife always says I'm too detached. Like I look at this stuff from this kind of above it all, and she's like, "Dude, you have to be in the minutia sometimes." I look at this as they got 500 races in a country that has slavery, this brutal form of slavery. Yes, you have a large percentage of the country that's racist. You got 500 out of 325 million to come to Charlottesville. It's like, is this the thing that the media needs to be talking about right now? Like, or maybe I'm saying this in the wrong way. Is this not a booby prize, but is this the media jumping from the Russia thing to something else? The Russia thing is sinking. People are attacking the Russian narrative, and now all of a sudden we have racists coming out the woodworks. That's the way I see it. I have to be honest. That's the way I see it. It's like every corner now there's a racist about to eat your baby. And it's like, dude, you understand those people were here before. Those people were here before Donald Trump got in office. Those people will be here after Donald Trump gets out of office.
Well, first I'd like to say that it's one of the things I admire most about you on your show is that you keep that, more detached perspective. And I think a lot of times it keeps you cool in making arguments and remembering to make points before you jump to the next one. And actually, I've watched you and I've tried to incorporate a little of that. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's an amazing compliment. Thank you. My wife hates it.
As always, our greatest strengths can be our greatest weaknesses as well. So I'm sure there's other ways it manifests in your relationship, but we don't need to go there. In terms of what's going on in Charlottesville, I am absolutely really, really deeply concerned about what is happening right now. This is, you need to look, one of the things I've been talking to and telling people to do with this is look at where the establishment establishment politicians and the mainstream media, the establishment media, and look at where they are taking this. Because you have to remember, we know what are their motives, what is their agenda, and what serves, and they serve the power interests because they are owned by the power interests. So when they are pushing a narrative like this, it behooves us to look deeper and see why are they doing this. And really, my rule of thumb is if the establishment media and the political structure is really pushing something hard, then it's time to take a really deep and critical, objective look at it, and not to be pulled in to be taken where they want us to go with it. And there is, this is definitely being fueled, like exactly you said. I think I got a newsletter from people, one of the groups down in Virginia. They said there was only 200 people who attended that rally.
I'm not surprised, man. Look, I was writing an article today, and as I haven't written an article in a while, and I realized as I'm writing an article, I'm making this point of kind of this free speech point. Not that I find these guys absolutely detestable. I just don't know how to change them. It's like me telling them, hey, can you not be racist? No, that doesn't work. So it's like, yes, you're going to have people get together for all sorts of things. No, I can't necessarily do anything about it. And when do you intervene? And right there, I realized at the moment that I was writing an article talking about people intervening, I myself was intervening. Where's that line? Because understand, it didn't happen. Charlottesville is not Charlottesville without two people going to Charlottesville, meaning two groups. One group goes with this idea of moral superiority. It's like, we're going to fight fascists. The other group is actual fascists. These guys are hateful, racist people who are there.
You run marathons, companies, solve problems.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Is that me or you? Why is it? Hold on. Stop. I've got something playing in the background.
You're fine. You're fine.
Male.
Yeah, I don't see anything in mine.
All right, intermission. Sorry about
You're that. Fine. You're fine. You're fine. Nobody's harmed. Nobody's hurt. Where's that line of intervention? I find this to be a fascinating question, and I have to be honest, I don't know the answer. Like, it's 200, it's 1,000. When do you say, okay, somebody needs to go and do something in order to protest, in order to?
Well, wait a minute. Let's look at the reality. What has happened is there were the 200 people, or you can say upwards of estimates of 500 people. Okay, 200 to 500 people. Well, that'll be the number. Show up, and it has gone from that group of people to that entire group, those 500 people being equated with half of the political spectrum in this country.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, if you want to disempower them, you don't give them the power of half of the political face of the nation. That is not, talk about elevating hate to put it in a wholesale package like that. So, I mean, if you're going to, confront a protest, at least do it on the merits of what it actually is. I mean, but that's not what's happening. They are conflating it, and they're doing it very deliberately. so that it's a mechanism to stop dialogue. One of the things I'm finding on my channel, to even talk about it or to try to have an objective perspective on it, I've had people say, well, you're trying to find ways to defend Nazis. And I'm telling you, if they can take a narrative where they can cut off our ability to have objective discussions based on factual information, that is going to serve nobody but the power interests who are in control right now, which is why they are driving this narrative so hard.
Agreed. Yeah, Democrats coming out saying we need to have investigations into white supremacy. It's like, do you honestly believe that it's like Donald Trump is in the basement churning out racists? No, dude, those people are already there. Do I believe that the Democratic Party has a vested interest in tying what took place in Charlottesville to Donald Trump? Yes. And that's exactly what's taking place. Where they say Donald Trump is not condemning racists. Donald Trump is not repudiating racists. Republican Party is not repudiating racists in the party.
Well, and it's also, come on, it's like, spy versus spy. It's racist versus racist. I mean, you're going to have that. The Democratic Party wants to investigate racism. All right, then maybe we should start the investigation with why they ran a candidate who sold the prison industrial complex bill, which resulted in the largest incarceration of African-American citizens, poor minority citizens, mentally ill citizens in the history of this country, on hate speech, on bringing them to heel. She was the face of selling a piece of legislation that hugely harmed minority marginalized populations. And I see Elizabeth Warren, it's like she's tweeting out, this can't stand. She toured for that woman.
Yeah, she did.
That is total hypocrisy. So if you want to go there, well, let's do the full conversation and everybody own up to their aspect of it. And I remember when I used to say that during the election, I said, it's like we cannot be elevating somebody who would be part of implementing that kind of systemic harm and elevating an industry which literally is making profit off caging human beings. And you know what I got when I said that? Because you couldn't support her? By these same people who are screaming now, you're a purist.
We need to shut you up by any means necessary to shut you up.
That's right.
I'd go further. I'd even say structurally. It's like, if you're going to have the conversation, then have the conversation. I mean, ultimately, the conversation they're talking about is race, but it's done in this vulgar way. Like, it's this, we're going to bring up the worst aspects of the country. We're not going to deal with the structural racism. This idea of the prison system, the way cops pull people over in that way. The idea that you have people being locked up, put in cages over smoking pot. The guy from Nixon, I can't think of his name, came out saying that Richard Nixon started the drug war to lock up blacks and hippies. Now, there was a black president that was there between those times. And it's like if you're going to deal with this issue of race, deal with the issue of race. Let's not have this conversation in this kind of overt, vulgar way with the Democratic Party is purely trying to tar 50 or 40% of the population. I agree with you on this, man. I agree with you on this.
And you're right. To have the conversation in a structural manner, because it's like also, it's another thing I'm trying to do is get down to premises and, capitalism.
Yes. Sorry. Sorry. That's my.
That entire premise is based on exploitation and inequality. That is what the premise is. And we don't even have capitalism anymore. We have, unfettered capitalism is turning into oligarchy and that is fascism. These institutional structures are doing that. So you're absolutely right. So instead of talking about the foundational structures of society that set up these dynamics, people who have, the racists are going to crucify the racists, and it's descended into utter hypocrisy. And people need to, at the same time, whenever something like this is happening, and they're really ramping it up, it's like, what else is in the headlines this week? And what else are they trying, what are they trying to accomplish with this narrative? What are they either trying to get support for that they wouldn't be able to get support for unless this dynamic was going on, or what are they trying to distract from?
Yeah.
So, I mean, look at the headlines of this week. I went over on CNN. The headlines were Mueller's investigation into the Trump impeachment, into Trump and Russia, looked like it was heating up and that they were going to go somewhere with it. So you're seeing that in the background. Do they want to impeach Trump? Do they have these motives? And people, I'm really, really concerned about people getting on board for the impeachment of Trump. If that they're going to be using it. I mean, they're trying to get the support of painting him as so deplorable that you can't possibly support him. And it looks like they're going to do the impeachment. If they try to move forward with this,
oh, that's going to be hell.
It would be a lie.
Yeah, it'll be hell to pay. At first, Mike Pence is not better than Donald Trump.
Oh God.
I'm sorry, he's worse. Whether they realize it or not, Mike Pence will fit like a what are those things? Like a disc into a slot. He's their guy. Like he's a Republican's Republican at that point. He just has a calm demeanor. So it doesn't look all that bad, even though he's doing the exact same things as Donald Trump. It blows me away that these people are like, we need to impeach Trump. Trump is your best card. The man is a goblin. He's an absolute goblin.
Yeah, Mike Pence is Dick Cheney with a creationist bent.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what he is. And what's really terrifying is so many people will support the impeachment of Donald Trump because they've channeled all these things that the entire political establishment, the entire political structure is perpetrating. And they have all channeled it into Donald Trump, and they are using it to manipulate. And it's going to be a disaster, not just in terms of what it's going to do to the country to further fraction and split us, which is the thing that they to keep us divided is so key for them keeping their power and their control. But are we nuts that we want to set up a dynamic to go along with them impeaching a president on a lie? The Russia narrative, the Russia story is a fairy tale that was invented, for obfuscating the real election fraud, driving war, and using a new neo-McCarthy kind of bent to slander anybody who exposes the truth about what they're doing. So don't empower that dynamic. And in the future, if they're going to do this, impeach people on lies, then what kind of precedent is that setting up for when they want to take somebody that you may support out? It is nothing that people should be supporting. But, in this time where, reason and logic is just being trumped by, forgive the pun, this reactionary, this deliberately inflamed reactionary response. It's a very hard.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I think what it is, people, perspectives are relative, man. It's like you look at somebody and you believe that you know them. You have this value, this weight, to the person. Okay, this is Donald Trump. This is all the things I invest into this person being Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump is a racist. I have no idea whatever else is associated with Donald Trump. I don't think Russia hacked this. In fact, I'm pretty sure that at this point the narrative has fallen apart. And yet, it's on one story after the next. Like where one media organization, like mainstream, it was The Nation, RT, I think Salon ran an article, one after the next. This story doesn't make sense. This story is falling apart. This story is unbelievable. And now all of a sudden, we have the racists. The racists are coming to get us now. Oh man, whether they realize it or not, it's just, impeaching Donald Trump on something like this is insane. But like it's a coup. There's no other word for it. You're essentially taking out a president in office. You may greatly dislike that president, but you're taking the president out of office on the premise of a lie. That investigation, a Mueller investigation, was started on a lie. Like, that blows me away. I really dislike Donald Trump, so it kills me to say it. But you have this situation where Hillary Clinton loses an election. She loses to reality shows. After losing to reality shows, she screams at the top of her lungs, one person after the next. Like in the book Shattered, it's an amazing thing to read, where you're reading Hillary Clinton is depressed and she's demoralized, and these people are calling her saying, hey, we're sorry you lost the reality shows. Like, it's embarrassing. And she comes back saying, I didn't lose to reality shows. It was Russia and Comey, and we need to make sure that everybody knows that it's Russia and Comey. Every Democrat screams at the top of their lungs, Russia. The media organization goes along with it. And all of a sudden, there's an investigation into Trump over Russia and Comey over Russia. It never took place. It's amazing. Like, that blows me away that that's okay. And because they completely dislike the guy, they'll just let it slide. That's amazing.
And what I find more chilling is how many people will be led to go along with it. And, you know, if you want to impeach Trump, impeach him on the fact that he illegally bombed Syria. You know,
oh, but they can't do that. At that point, you're dragging Obama in front of the Hague.
That's right. That's what I say. People are like, "Oh, you're trying to protect Trump." I'm like, "No, you can impeach him on the truth. Impeach
Just
him.
keep going. Yeah, just get all of them.
Retroactively impeach all the other presidents and try him for war crimes." And
you know what's wild about that? They brought George Bush out, and had him say races are horrible. And I'm like, this guy murdered 1 million people. He murdered a fucking million people. How are you dragging him out to say that races are horrible when he murdered 1 million people?
I know.
That's an amazing. That's lunacy. That's a lunacy. Like, it's aggravating to look at that. And yeah, man, this is why I don't like to get into minutia. Like, it's that reason it's aggravating. I think that's what it is. I think my defense to that is just be above it all. Just look at all of it. It's just looking down on it and say, okay, these people are crazy. But that's lunacy. I saw the George Bush thing that pissed me off. I had to be honest. 1 million people died in that war. He murdered 1 million people. We are still in those countries today. The drone warfare program where Obama was murdering all of those people started under George Bush. This is an amazing thing to bring this guy out saying, I dislike racists.
I know. And the guy who leading the Russia investigation is Robert Mueller. Robert Mueller was the guy who basically, no matter what you think did or did not happen in 9/11, there's no question that Robert Mueller whitewashed the investigation.
Okay. Oh, this is interesting. All right. 9/11. I saw your channel on this. I'm fascinated by this. So look, anybody who's watched my channel know I take this perspective that I'm ambiguous to pretty much everything. How the hell do I know? Everything exists outside of myself. I'm taking information in from different sources. So it's like, I can't be hard and say, this is exactly what took place. I am clear. It's like, I would risk my life on XYZ. How can I do that? I wasn't there. Any information that I'm taking is from outside sources. So I don't take the stance of, I know what took place on 9/11 and I know those buildings went down because, you know, these planes hit and this was, the government story is completely right. I rarely believe what the government tells me in general. Your take on this is fascinating to me. So explain your theory of the case in regards to 9/11. And again, I say that only because I make the point that I take no position on it. I personally, I think planes did hit the building. The question becomes, what else? It's like, what parts of the government story to me are wrong? And that's where I'm kind of, I don't know. There was a third building that fell, and they're trying to say that building fell because of, you know, it got hot and it just fell over. That doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't.
Me looking at the building fall, and it's like, I don't think people are crazy for saying that building fell in a very peculiar way if it was supposed to be this kind of unorganized hit. So I don't think people are crazy at all for looking at that and saying to themselves, something looks fishy with this. Not to mention the government investigation, I gotta be honest, is slightly bogus. So
whitewash.
Right. So what is the perspective that you have on 9/11?
Can you hear me?
Go for it.
Feedback on my again.
Uh-oh. Let's see.
That's because I'm talking about 9/11.
Is that what it is? It's like it's attacking the mic. All right, go for it. Try it again.
Gonna work? I don't know if it's gonna work. Okay. 9/11. You don't need to look. You need to look at it from an evidence-based perspective. And the issue around 9/11 is that people have been told that if you don't go with the official narrative, then you are a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist and a crazy person. And we are very much groupthink people. So what happens is the majority of people have never actually even looked at the evidence around the case on 9/11. And I tell this story often. I've told it on my channel. You know, I was looking at 9/11 more and more, looking at the scientific evidence. I mean, you know, right now there's currently, I think they're up to 6,000 engineers, scientists, demolition experts who are calling for the need for a new investigation because it's bogus. I mean, you have top academic professors, people who understand science, physicists on board with all of this. And my partner is a very well-respected engineer. He travels all over the world. He's a power engineer, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer. So, you know, and so when I said that there was an Architects and Engineers for Truth, and the special appeared on PBS, he finally would watch something. And he wouldn't listen to me for a year and a half. I said, something's wrong. There's something really, no, he didn't. He wouldn't listen to a word I had to say. I said, but this isn't even hard. And we argued about it. I mean,
he wouldn't even watch it. He's like, I don't even want to hear it.
He won't even look at it. Now, this is a very rational, very logical, respected professional man. And he started watching the show with me, and we watched it. And about 20 minutes in, he paused it because we had been arguing for a year and a half. And he's like, I'm sorry. He said, this is not just looking like this. There's something here to this. This is obvious. You know, when he started to actually look at the evidence and the scientific argument, as an engineer, from that perspective, a highly logical man, he saw it immediately. It's not that the evidence isn't there to completely really back that this was a controlled demolition.
It's groupthink.
It's that you can't even look at that evidence objectively, and he's since said that he did not want to accept the implications of what that meant. So, you know, I would recommend, you know, I am not the best, you know, scientific person to be getting into all of those kind of things. What I would say is, look at the people who have done the investigations, look at the science, look at the evidence, look at how that event was used, what happened after that event, who did it serve. I mean, I think one of the best people to watch on this is if you watch James Corbett's 9/11 Suspects series, which is excellent. Architects and Engineers 9/11 for Truth series that gives the science behind it. And you know, I'm not asking anybody to believe or disbelieve me or my opinion. I'm saying that with something like that, especially an event that was used to introduce the Patriot Act, start numerous wars on false premises, put all of our critical infrastructure under the Department of Homeland Security, which is an unconstitutional agency which should not even exist, and they just did that with our elections under the false pretense of Russia. You have to look at those things and understand that it is not a conspiracy to say that conspiracies exist. We have a long documented history of our government doing these kind of things. So to act like, you know, that this is beyond something that would happen is just naive.
No, I feel you. I think it's startling to try to approach it. It's startling in two ways. I think the first way has to do with this kind of group thing. Like it's, you know, if you do X, you're a tinfoil hat wearer to, you know, just because you're questioning whatever is taking place. I think the other part is like, oh man, I don't want to think that people are that craven. Now, mind you, I agree with you. You look back at history and you're like, well, certainly you realize things have been used to start wars. Like it's not like this mind-blowing thing that governments do things to start wars. Every war that a government has gotten into is, from the government standpoint, it was a good reason. Oftentimes those things were lies. It's just, I give you an example. I was in Israel. This was when I was younger. I wasn't all that political. I think it was like 2007 or something like that. And I was having this conversation on a bus in Nepal. Yeah, I was in Nepal, actually. We're going to go bungee jumping. And the Israeli soldier I'm sitting beside, him and I are having this conversation about 9/11. And it is a fascinating conversation because in his mind, he's like, dude, it's a hoax. And I'm like, no, it's not a hoax. I'm feeling myself getting really pissed at him. Like, dude, it's not a hoax. You had all of these people that died on that day. Now, if you're compelling that reaction, like think about it. That's not, it's kind of, it's this automatic reaction I think that people have. Even for me, me having this kind of perspective of just kind of like, yeah, I'm ambiguous to this stuff. It's this reaction of, dude, no, it took place. It was something that besmirched that country. Now, later, you know, as you get older, you're like, governments lie. These guys are craven. These guys are full of it. What's real what's real when reality is monetized? You know what I mean? It's like when reality is monetized, what's real? How do you make the determination of what's real? No, I don't think you're crazy at all. I don't think people are tinfoil hat wearers for having questions. And I don't think it's crazy to say, hey, we should have an actual investigation into it.
Yeah.
Not to mention Bush v. prison. Oh, man. The idea that him and Tony Blair are walking around is mind-blowing to me. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah. So Mueller is the guy who basically whitewashed the investigation. And, they're screaming. They're so upset, right? Because, deportation and everything. And, of course, Obama had the nickname deporter-in-chief because he deported more immigrants than any other president. But
it didn't bother them he was doing it, though. It's Obama. He sings really well. He sings really well. It's like
Robert Mueller basically rounded up Muslim men with no evidence and then locked him up in solitary confinement. I mean, so this is like somebody who did huge violations of, these populations that people are now saying Trump is violating with his continuation of what Obama did, because the bans on those countries originally were voted on by Obama, signed into law by Obama and voted by the Democrats. And the guy that they are putting in charge of the investigation, which all the Democrats, including Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard, praised to high heaven, is a man who completely violated, the Muslim population and used them to, illegally incarcerated them and kept them in torture conditions in solitary confinement to put this face on the lie of elevating that.
This was the black site thing. The guy was like the CIA torture director or something.
Yeah. So he was Mueller was the head of the FBI. But yeah, so it's like, you are kidding me. It's like the layers of hypocrisy as you look at this. It's like,
it's aggravating.
I can't even. It's breathtaking.
When you're doing your show and you're doing something like this, it's amazing. Look, having another host on the show who's been doing this for longer than me is fascinating in a few ways, because I'm always curious on how other people experience their reality. When you're digging through this, and mind you, you're continuously digging through it. Like, this is one layer of hypocrisy after the next, and I'm going to get up and I'm going to do a show on another layer of hypocrisy. What are you experiencing when you're doing that? I think my thing is detachment. I'm going to be above it all. I'm going to joke it. I'm going to laugh at it. And I'm going to bitch about it when it really bugs the shit out of me. But ultimately, to try not to be part of the petty dramas. You don't experience it that way. At least it doesn't seem that you're experiencing that way. You seem, like I said, I've said it, force of nature. Like, you seem to be feeling it when you're giving your presentation about, oh man, this is what's going on today, and this is pissing me off. How are you experiencing that internally? I don't know if I'm asking that question clearly or not, but it's this thing of what's going on in your head when you're doing these stories.
The reason I do the channel is because I use my voice to be a voice for people who have been disempowered. People may look at me and not think that I'm a disempowered person, but my history is one of enormous economic struggle, struggling with issues around some serious depression. I was a teen mom. I've been on food stamps. I've been on, I had my house taken away in bankruptcy. I have been part of many things that people, dismiss people who wouldn't even be considered having a voice. So the channel has been a way for me to have a voice, because I have not been a person with a voice. And so so the reason I feel this and so deeply is because it's not theoretical to me. I know what this is doing to people. I have seen the harm that this that this causes. I have paid twice the amount of money of that my house is worth and had the bank take it back, and then have people tell me how great Obama's Saving Homes Act was.
Yes.
I have dealt with a lot of people in my life who have been through a lot of horrible things. And, so that is why I do the channel. So it is not I want to be a voice. I want to be a voice that is going to do something to change the trajectory of the country. And I think it's you know, David laughs at me. He's like, well, you're trying to save the world, sweetie. He's like, good luck with that. And yeah. I really was. I was on a crusade. I was like, I figured, you know, I'm getting better at it, and I've really changed how I have discussions. But I mean, I really took it very, very personally. When, you know, it's like when I was like, and so naive, like, I'm just going to expose the election fraud so that we can see that the elections are cheated, and then we're going to fix them. And then it's going to be good. I'm going to do a blog on it. I'm going to do evidence. It's going to be great. I'm going to fix it. And, and you know, when it didn't work.
So naive. I love it. I love it.
Ridiculous. I mean, it's so stupid and naive, but that, you know, the emotional place that I've come from, this channel has beaten me to the smithereens. I mean, I've been depressed. I've been on the floor crying. I've been angry. I mean, you know, and I've also, you know, a lot of people watch me because I am a voice for, you know, it's like how they are feeling.
Yeah.
How they are feeling. And also, I think it's kind of weird how we have these discussions with these huge implications. I mean, we talk about war as if, you know, and we're so numb and distanced from it and so protected by borders. It's not real to us. And it's not, so it just trips me out. And so, I don't know. Yeah. I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're not wrong. I'm hearing feedback. Where is this feedback coming from? Let's see. This. I'm sorry. It's. All right, let's try this. Where is that coming from? All right, give me 1 second. I did something. There we are, I think. Is that better?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? You're getting feedback from me now?
Wait. All right, how about now? Better?
I can hear you.
Oh, why can't I hear you?
Did you shut my mic off?
Okay, how about now?
How about now?
Yeah. I don't know what's taking place.
Well, it's Google. The Google. The evil Google monster.
Oh, man. What? Okay, this. All right. How about now?
Now?
I didn't hear echo.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
But I know what. Okay. I don't know what changed.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's just giving feedback.
It's easy giving. It's like echo.
That is so bizarre. I'm changing nothing myself.
Well, Google is notorious.
We're doing bad.
Yeah. Now I'm getting feedback.
How about now? No feedback? Is that work? That's working?
Do you want to do a part 2 and then go and do another thread?
Yeah, let me solve this. I'm sorry. God, this is aggravating. Wait, are you still getting feedback?
I'm here.
You still getting feedback? Oh, I'm not getting feedback.
I'm getting feedback, but I can deal with feedback. As long as it's not showing up on your end.
I'm not hearing it at all at this point.
Well, now you just gave it over in this end of the clip. See how you are. Make her deal with it.
All right, how about now?
What about now? Got some.
Still?
There's a little pop on the piece. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we gone? We're gone.
I am going to try to fix this though.
Are you there?
Debbie?
I'm
I
here.
am there.
I'm still here.
I'm not hearing any echoes. Are you hearing echoes?
I don't know. No, I'm good.
Oh, perfect. I don't. This is so bizarre to me. Nothing changed. Nothing was touched. Nothing was updated. Nothing.
I know. I have
Nothing.
tons of problems with Google Hangout.
All right. So I think we left off on this thing of
Me being very emotional about my work, which I
Yeah.
am. I have actually been in quite a bit.
But that's not a bad thing. And I said it's not a bad thing. As you're talking, you're making me realize that, yeah, I'm not that detached. Like it's if I'm thinking of my reasons for starting this, and you're thinking of all the bad stuff that happened, it's like all the medical stuff and all the even poverty, just for my mom and everything else. Yeah, it makes a difference, man. Like it gives you a different perspective of the world. That perspective of the world kind of informs how animated you are against it. Like, even traveling abroad, like seeing poverty in other countries, it puts in perspective this thing of what we're doing around the world. I feel where you're coming from. I try to stay detached from it. Doesn't necessarily always work. It may come across as detachment. I think it's, put it this way. I think for me it's detachment dealing with feedback of people. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to hear other people's perspectives because I put my perspective up. I'm feeling it. But, what for you, what's the main issue? Like if people had to, if there was one thing that people should pay attention to, what would be that one thing? And look, there's multiple balls in the air at any particular time. But
I don't think it's any one political issue. I think what we are dealing with is the broken political structure. I think that's the most important thing right now. And I think that our failure to address the realities of what we're actually living in is making us completely impotent to create any kind of effective strategy or change around this. And we are constantly being diverted back into the exact same ways, and we keep repeating the behavior. And it's precisely because what you're talking about, it is emotional. Politics, a lot of times, is 95% emotion and 5% logic when people are caught up. So I actually think if we can keep a more objective and critical ability to look at what's happening, it's going to serve us much better. And we need a perception shift. That's what we need. We need a perception shift, and stop getting drawn into the political dramas and all the different ways that the dysfunction is playing out, and just trying to understand how the underlying core dynamic is actually working, so that maybe we can develop a strategy that might actually empower us instead of keeping us under the same kind of control.
Does that require a war, a nuclear war? Meaning, is this one of those things where we've into a thicket, and that thicket doesn't necessarily have a solution where it allows itself to work out? Because I agree with you, the political apparatus is broken, and I have no clue how to fix it.
Well, I often say that we need crisis to facilitate change. Usually that is when human trajectories change, when there is a crisis. And rational voices in the face of these kind of mass manipulations and this political theater that is being pulled over our eyes. I don't know what it's going to take to play out. The thing that is hardest, I really believe, and a lot of people can't even comprehend this, is I think our biggest power right now is in the power of removal. is in not plugging into media that is going to manipulate us to facilitate these divisions and be pushing us to organize in ways that aren't actually going to accomplish anything. Using our power through refusing to participate in the capitalist system in any way that we can. I know that is not as simple as it is for some people, who do not have access to being able to grow a garden in their backyard or be able to, remove themselves off the grid. But there are, every time that you refuse to participate, that is empowerment. But in a society that has been so trained that, it's
consumerism.
You have to do something, it's counterintuitive. People are saying that's not a plan. It's a very crucial component of moving forward to create something different.
I agree. I think removing yourself from the system, like it's this, oh, what's just taking place? Oh, there you are. Google is killing me. Google, you're killing me, dude. You're muted for some reason. Same progressive presenting. That's not on my side. I don't think it is. Okay. Let me do this. When you came back into the broadcast, it created a weirdness. Let me invite you back into the broadcast, and it'll be like one moment. All right. Let's hit invite. All right, I am going to try to invite Same Progressives. When she came back on, it created weirdness. And let's go to questions. Just to see what the users have. Yes, Jamal, yes. Yes. I think she's coming back. I just sent her an invite. Jamal sound, that's messed up. Jamal sound is messed up. My sound is messed up. Still? My phone is on. Right. Hey guys, does the sound okay? Sound is going out. All right. Let's see what's going on. All right, guys, I am going to kill this because it sounds like, yeah, you're good. Okay. It's flipping out over saying aggressive.
Am I back?
You are back.
Look at me, back in flames.
Back into Saturday, All right, so let's go to questions. Because I'm pretty sure they're holding up a bunch of questions. All right, guys, if you guys have any questions, Google hates us. Yes, Jeremy, Google hates us. Why do we allow, this is 2-bit Rasputin, why do we allow political parties to do the business of government? So if you're thinking of something like the Venus Project, they look at it as government as being a technical thing. It's like, what's the best system to deal with healthcare? Well, that's not really a political question, that's a technical question. They're asking, why is this a political apparatus in the first place? That's a hard question, man. Yeah, man, that's a hard question.
Why don't we have an entirely different political structure than we do?
Right.
I don't know. I don't think it's working, though. We should try something else if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about the capitalistic system, yes, we are. I mean, we really are. We're really talking about this thing of changing how the incentive structures in our particular society. Because otherwise, how do you get something different? Like, otherwise, you have this thing of everybody's functioning for their own individual self-interest. Where does that get you? I think that gets you to where we are, personally.
Well, I mean, we do need to look at how we are. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you do. It's basically you're dealing with human nature.
That's it, dude. It's not just sound. It's outside interference because of the message. JFK and MLK were both executed. Oh, that's not the sound. So someone asked, it's this question, Debbie, discuss Jeff Katzenberg and his move to alt-right media, or to alt media. I don't know who Jeff Katzenberg is.
I don't know who Jeff Katzenberg is either, so I can't discuss it.
All right, so George Washington warned us about political parties. The real legend. George, yes, that's true. That is true. You stated that it's, Jen Lynn, you stated that's better than I am. Wow. What's Debbie's prediction for the upcoming 18 and 20 election? 2018, 2020.
More of the same. More theater, more circus, more controlled elections. More of the same. There's absolutely nothing that I'm seeing indicative of. I mean, the Department of Homeland Security, when they took over critical infrastructure, you see that they are going to. Did you see the DEF CON? I've done videos on this. The DEF CON conference where they were exposing the vote machine hacking. Yeah, the DEF CON.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, the DEF CON conference. They all of a sudden, the mainstream media, who has absolutely no interest whatsoever in actually covering, the problems with our election machines and how the entire thing is rigged, and the way that the machines have been compromised has been proven scientifically for I don't know, over 15 years. So now all of a sudden the DEFCON, and there's this big thing where all the voters are showing that how easily it is to hack and change results, and people have been very excited about this, but nobody looked at who was doing the exposure, and the exposure was coming from a guy named Jake Braun. And what a coinky-dink that Jake Braun just happened to be one of the department liaisons, the head of the Department of Homeland Security for 15 years. He was also the representative of Deepwater for the money interest during the Deepwater Horizon spill for the fossil fuel companies. And he also owns a global capitalist investment firm that identifies opportunities for rich billionaires through the government. So the Department of Homeland Security right now is going through the process of selling the need for new voting machines. And there was back in June, there was a special meeting held at the Brennan Center, which is just basically a deep state criminal think tank. And they had James Woolsey host talking about our elections and why we need to do these changes, which now Jake Braun is expanding upon. So you have the CIA and people from the Department of Homeland Security talking about election reform after the Department of Homeland Security just unconstitutionally took over critical infrastructure. So yeah, I think you're going to have great results in 2018 with those new machines. I think it's going to
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. No, we're not going to vote this out. We're not going to vote this out. That's not going to happen. That is not, this is so far broken beyond that. We need a mass perception shift and awakening to understand that those mechanisms aren't available for us to, stop participating in this theater and finding other ways to take our power. That's what we're going to have to do.
That's terrifying.
Yeah,
that's terrifying. It's like I don't see it. Like it's because for that to take place, people would need to at least be aware of their surroundings. Like nobody pays attention to it. Like it's amazing. I would have a conversation with my mom. My mom loves me dearly. She watches my channel, and she would still come back and say, "Yeah, but Trump colluded with Russia." It's like, oh. Even my own mom, I can't convince her. So D. Simmons asked Debbie why we should ditch being scared of Russians, only to now be scared of Nazis. What's going on? He must have missed that first part of the conversation. Yeah, dude, that's the first part.
Yeah, don't the succumb into fear, period, or the manipulations that they're using. We shouldn't be giving up our emotional state of mind to these freaks. Not that I haven't frequently. I'm trying to get better.
You know, this is a good point. I've heard you mention that you were into Buddhist philosophy, like this idea of part of Buddhist philosophy is non-intervention, and that's like this idea of and the only reason I'm thinking about it, there was a show Sense8, and the woman, she was a Buddhist, and she kind of made this point like, yeah, I don't want to get involved in that because you guys are intervening in something. You may be right, but you're still intervening in something. How's that balance? Like, how do you keep that balance? I mean, ultimately.
Well, I subscribe to Buddhist philosophies, and I also think that I don't subscribe to that. I think actions arise. That's the Buddhist thing. It's that that you move authentically into the present moment, and if it feels true, you move with it. It's not having a need to try to control everything. But if something arises, you participate with it. So it's not about not doing anything ever or ever being, you know, present with whatever situation you're dealing with. So I don't share that, but that philosophy very much informs how I think that the change really, the only power we have to create real change, which is not externally, but internally. I mean, really, if we can't hold a peaceful heart within ourselves, we are not going to manifest that in the world. And if we cannot hold ourselves accountable for our own hypocrisies, blind spots, prejudices, weaknesses, there is no way that we're going to be able to do anything to be able to influence anybody else. And really, the biggest way that if you are able to reach people, it is through that staying open and seeing opportunities and not bludgeoning people with your opinion, as I have learned, sometimes not the most effective way to be convincing. Some people don't like it.
That's not easy. That's not easy. You think it's like you look at something, you're like, that guy's so wrong. He's so wrong. I must say something about that person being so wrong.
What I've realized is people I have thought really were wrong in the past, and I was convinced that they were wrong. Over a period of time, I have actually come around at certain points in my life to actually have my perspective completely flipped around. Not always. Not on participating in elections. How about that? I always thought, like, you know, people who said, you know, you got to vote, you got to participate in the elections. It's like, it's the fault of people who don't participate in elections that we are in this situation. And now I'm like, well, if our elections are a farce, if they are not giving accurate results, and if we do not have the ability to, you know, really even know the outcome, we are validating a fraudulent process and deluding ourselves by participating in them. So my perspective, I mean, I have perspective changes all the time. I am constantly adjusting my views around new information that I get, which is not supposed to be allowed, because there is one way we're supposed to view things, and it's supposed to be a simple, very, you know, yeah.
I had a guy when I was, it's funny, I agree with you. I had a conversation with the guy, and he said he didn't vote. I was like, what do you mean you don't vote? I mean, you have to vote. What's going on with this? And he's telling me, yeah, I don't see the point. Nothing changes. And for the most part, those parties are the exact same thing. And I've been on here screaming that these parties don't change. For the most part, these parties are the same thing. Yeah, I've had the same flip. And even his case with Obama, he was like, I voted for Obama because he was black. This is what I got. He said, I voted for Obama because he was black, and I thought things was going to change. And he says, when they didn't change, I blew it up. I didn't see the point. I can't believe it. It's what, 6 years, 7, 8 years later, and I'm like, that guy was absolutely true. He was absolutely right.
Right.
Absolutely right.
I said, you know, if you want to vote, if you are trying to, you know, if you're using it to expose the fraud, or you're using it to, you know, unveil the delusion or the illusion or whatever, then that might have some merit. But to just participate and think that, you know, it's a show, it's theater. Not every last election, but many of them.
Where does, this is going to sound like a weird question, but where does, do you remember in Batman, this is a bizarre question, but I love the question because it's a question I ask myself and I don't know an answer to it. In Batman, Batman is holding Joker over the ledge, and Joker makes this thing of saying, you know, it's this thing of madness. It's kind of like gravity. When you let go, everything's, you know, just up in the air. When you don't know what's real, I make this point before, when reality is monetized, meaning people have monetary interest in you believing certain things, and they have political interest in you believing certain things. Where's reality? And it's like, and where do you find that this is the wood end of the stove? You know, this is the truth. This is the bare minimum of the reality. Because keep in mind that layer gets peeled back and peeled back. And at which point does it's like, okay, I don't know where this layer gets peeled back to the last one. Does it make sense? It's this thing of like when I ask myself, what do I believe?
About peeling the onion. You're talking about going to the next level of the onion, and then you're like, you think you got it, and then you strip it down another level, and you're like, oh, I didn't even, whoa, the whole perspective changed.
Right there, right. But how do you know? It's like, how do you know that layer of the onion is not an actual real layer of the onion? How do you know you're not peeling away at a layer that's a real layer? If that makes sense. Does that make sense? It's like I'm looking at something, I'm thinking, this is true. Or I'm thinking, this is not true. And then I'm finding this kind of confirmation bias to kind of push me in a perspective to say, okay, yeah, this is true. Now, somebody else is saying, you're completely wrong on this. You're completely wrong. Your head is completely in your ass on this. And you're like, no, this is my evidence for believing it's true. And they're saying, this is my evidence for believing you're full of it. Where's reality, man?
Well, there's also, there can be more than one truth.
No, that's true.
There can be multiple truths.
I totally grant you that.
There can be multiple truths. You know, sometimes it's just knowing what is completely not true. That, you know, I mean, if you're going to get philosophical, I mean, I am constantly blown away because I do a lot of personal work. I do, you know, I spend a lot of time, I do my meditation, I try to stay present. And, you know, sometimes I think this is so ridiculous, but I'm like, I'm there. I'm here. I've achieved it. I'm here. And then I'm like, and then my perception will flip to a whole other thing. I'm like, oh. Yeah. I say to David sometimes, I'm like, if this keeps going, I'm not even going to know where I'm going to put my foot down because I'm going to.
Uncomfortable. Yeah. It's uncomfortable. It's disorienting.
Yeah. So I don't know how clear that was, but I understand what you're talking about.
No, it makes sense. You're talking about floating between perspectives. I see it this particular way, and then I look at it this particular way, and yeah, I'm getting a different perspective depending on the way I'm looking at it. Yeah, perspectives are relative. It's stuff where it's 9/11 is a perfect one. 9/11 is a perfect one. It's like you're looking at the evidence and you're saying, okay, these people who are staying away from this are doing so purely for some bias, just because groupthink. And I'm looking at the evidence, and the evidence is giving me the story of what's real. It's like, where's the bottom? And even with 9/11 thing, there's a certain point where you're like, okay, this is what the evidence says, but what's real? What's the bottom? Yes, this is the technical details of what took place. I may believe that, yes, these guys were wrong. This was a controlled demolition. Okay. But where's the bottom of that? That takes you into really interesting and weird places. And I'm not saying it's wrong per se. I'm just saying it takes you into these interesting areas where truth is just really difficult to find. That's all. I found myself banging my head on this idea of what are the true aspects of society, and I end up not having an answer to that question. And ultimately, it's just, all right, these are my basic principles that I live by.
Well, that is very strong. If you have that, and that's what people are lacking, and that's why the purity argument or the compromise argument is so dangerous, because they're not talking about compromise, and they're not talking about purity. They're talking about being able to move a goalpost to wherever they want to move it, and there is no ever having any boundary within that. You know, so that is why that is so amazingly dangerous. You're frozen. You're gone. I don't know what happened. Hello? I'm presenting to everyone. I don't know what happened. I don't know if I'm still on. Hello, everybody. I can't see him anymore, so I don't know what happened. I think he fell out of the conversation. Anyways, I'm gonna go over to see if there's any way to salvage this. If not, I guess we'll end here. Oh dear. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, hi everybody. There I am. Yes. I don't know where tomorrow went. He's gone. Oh, hi everybody. I'm hoping he'll come back on.
Oh, you can't. You're still there. I'm sorry. I wasn't going to drag you back on. Google failed completely. It just threw an error. It aired out.
Oh, well, I don't know what happened.
Aired out completely. Google is angry at us for some reason. Google is in this thing with us.
Okay, well, we're getting pretty far out there with, like, you know, what is the meaning of life? What is true?
That's fair. That's fair. That is fair. All right, so let's see. I'm gonna see if anybody else has any questions. Otherwise, I am gonna. Let me ask you this: is there anything you yourself want to talk about, like in general, like something that pushes you, something that drives you, something that you yourself never really get the question asked, even though you yourself want to talk about that particular question? It doesn't make sense. Like it's a thing of like what it's not the question of what drives me, it's more so of what am I interested in under normal circumstances. Like what's my thing that I myself are interested in, not necessarily something I'm doing on my show.
Well, right now, what I'm interested in, my life is immersed in multiple deaths. Everybody's been dying around me, and there's more sick people coming. So I'm doing death work right now. I'm staying. That's where I am at in my life right now. I am, you know, it's 46, and I am like dealing with understanding the reality of mortality in a whole different way with how much I've been witnessing it lately, and it's profoundly changing my perceptions. Very, very. You know, and it's also making me realize how completely absurd it is, how what we get hung up on and what we are wasting our time on, because life is so short. I mean, it's so short. It is less than a blink of a fraction of a blink of an eye. It's less than a breath, and we are all caught up in
petty dramas.
Petty dramas. We do not stay present with each other. We don't see each other. We get caught up in our own mind. We are not even living our lives. And so that's where the death stuff has brought me, because, you know, I'm in the problem. You know, David's mother died. My grandmother died. My dog died. My other dog is in the process of dying. My father is very ill. You know, and there's just more coming on top of that. And it's like, I'm just realizing it's like, the only thing that matters really ultimately to me, and really where everything has brought me for the past couple of years, just from this channel work and from this intense stuff in my own life, is that the only thing that matters is being present with each other, being kind, and being loving to each other. The rest of the stuff is not important. It really isn't. That is all we have. And most of the time when we get caught up in all this shit, we're managing our anxiety, trying to control things that we really do not have control. And and the amazing thing, and I've done this a couple times in my life, it's only happened to me a couple times in my life, but when I have really let go to presence, like really lived it, like I don't care. It's like whatever happens, happens. If I lose this, if I keep this, if I gain, I mean, I don't care if I'm homeless, because I've been to that extreme. When I have let it go that far, the way that things start happening and start unfolding are magical. And it is a really hard place, and you have to be able to hold yourself, like, you know, so strong to be able to do it. But it is really, if that is, that I think is what would transform the world.
That is not an easy place to be. That's trauma. I mean, honestly.
I'm feeling liberated through the process. It's like, it's a gift. I'm feeling
I've told the channel before, I've had a lot of medical stuff in my life. And it is funny, I remember my mom was driving to the hospital in a hurricane. It was, we had just had a hurricane in Richmond, Virginia. I was mentally ill. They thought I was going to die. And she's hearing these people argue and bitch and moan on the radio. And she's like, my kid is about to die, and these people are bitching and moaning on the radio. Like, it immensely, immediately, in this kind of president perspective of, this shit doesn't matter. Like, it's amazing thing. It's this amazing thing of awareness that my wife doesn't get it, per se. She doesn't get why I always say it doesn't matter. Like, it's not me being apathetic. It's just, it's like, dude, when you've gotten to the point where you nearly died, this other stuff doesn't matter. It's like, yes, it's annoying. Yes, it's a pain in the ass, but ultimately it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And that's, she takes it as me being flippant. It's not me being flippant. It's this thing of, these things are mostly petty dramas. The stuff that, life is real. You know what I mean? It's like people, the interactions that you have with people, those things are real. Those are real values. This other stuff, these things are like cockfights. It's like managed fights in that sense. It's like society puts society in a culture and have people fight one another in this tribal way. Most of the time, it doesn't matter. Most of the time, when you get to the bare bones minimum of it, it's like this other stuff doesn't really matter. The life part matters. This other stuff doesn't. It's not. You're talking about trauma. That's all I'm saying. I understand where you're coming from on this. Not from my angle. I understand from a different angle. Like, my angle is opposite of yours, if that makes sense. Like, I see it from the perspective of the person laying in the bed, not the person who's looking down at the person laying in the bed. You know, you have family members coming in there like your lips are crusting because of, you know, have breathing through your mouth and all this other stuff, or tubes in your mouth. I see it from that angle. And that angle, believe it or not, that angle sometimes is harder to deal with the other person. Meaning it's harder to deal from looking at the other side. From the time I've seen somebody ill in my family, it's painful. Being on ill is not as painful. And I know that sounds crazy. I know that sounds weird in reverse. I can deal with the illnesses and the pains and aches and everything else. There's a ton of pain medication, medication, all that stuff. Dealing with somebody where you're like, this fleeting thing is about to go out is a harder part to deal with. That's a harder part to deal with, believe it or not. So yes, the trauma that you're talking about is not an easy place to be. So you have my sympathies on that. That doesn't mean much, but you have my sympathies on that.
Well, you know, I tell you, it has been probably one of the most challenging things I've ever gone through. But I tell you, I don't feel, there's been pain with the process, but it's the resistance to the process that's causing the pain. And actually, I have had some huge liberations within this that have freed me up for the rest of my life. I remember I had a great epiphany. I wish I was just staying with it. If I could stay there, I'd be like, I'm almost there. I'm like, no, I'm off the wagon.
No, man, petty dramas. You can't get away from it. There's no way to get away from it. You're stuck. It's like you're encased in this thing that wants things and wants to hold on to things. I love this person. I love that thing. This dog is awesome. That chessboard is great. It's just how we are. It's almost like we're built in this.
Letting go. It's loving without attachment. It's the ultimate. It's the ultimate thing to try to stay with. So that's.
I used to think that idea was insane. I used to think is like the point of life is to have attachments. I used to honestly think it's like this thing of living ferociously. I know that sounds insane, but it's like attachment. Saying, yes, I'm going to hold on to this. Look, I'm a chess player. In my head, it's controlling events. X leads to Y leads to Z. How do you manage?
For you?
yeah. It's like, how do you manage these events? And then you find out, oh, you can't manage these events. These events can't be managed. These events are beyond your control.
I'm thinking about them so that I'm controlling them because I'm thinking about them. I'm thinking hard.
Controlling of events. I love it. I love it. I look at this stuff as chess, man. And unfortunately, that's not the way life works. At least not from the standpoint of the higher experiences or the larger experiences. It doesn't work that way. Wow. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that. That is not an easy thing to take.
Well, thank
Not
you.
an easy thing to take.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on tonight. You know, I have to say I appreciate what you have been doing with your channel, and I like the way that you present, and I think and it's obviously that you have a definite compassion, and I think that what you're doing with this channel is adding something to the discussion that's really, really needed. And so I'm really
coming from you, I immensely appreciate that. I mean, your channel is one of my favorites. It's like I said, man. I have this thing of what's honest or what's earnest. Even if you're wrong, what's earnest? And look, this idea of wrong can be tenuous, but it's like, is the person being earnest? Is this person being influenced by something else? And if I think that person's being earnest and straightforward, then yeah, even when I don't necessarily agree with them, they got my
well, and I think that's, you know, that's another thing. It's like sometimes people will say to me, Debbie, I'm sorry, but I don't agree with you on everything. And I'm like, well, thank God for that.
right. It's like, okay. No, I've had that too. It's like, or someone would say, yeah, he was off on that day. What do you mean off? I'm just a person. This is just my perspective. It's not off or anything else. You may disagree with me, but it's different. Look, I totally appreciate it. Absolutely appreciate you coming on. Thank you. Totally appreciate it. All right, you have a good night, guys. I'm gonna close. Google has been screwing with us. I'm totally gonna close. Thanks, guys. Have a good one, everyone. Have a good night, guys.